Hi. For my article, I read for the best results, take the sting out of criticism by Alina Tugg. This publication was published in August of 2009. What Alina was trying to convey was we as people hate criticism. It's not fun. It's so much more preferred to constant praise and approval. But as people, we do want and love our friends to accept our criticism and our feedback for things that we don't really maybe approve of. And so her whole article was trying to address how we can better accept and give criticism to our peers and our friends, and from our peers and friends. So what I learned in this article was a lot of things about just culture in general and our American cultural acceptance of praise, but and giving praise, but not so much accepting praise in the sense of we give out participation trophies just for participation, and we might sometimes give too much positive reinforcement, positive uh, feedback and too little negative feedback, and we focus on the positive solely and don't focus on the negatives. She referenced the Japanese culture where they do have an equal balance. So for every negative there's a equal positive. So if you did this right, well, you did this wrong, but you did this right and you really excel at this, but you still need to work on this. And how just the Japanese culture focuses not so much on making sure people are happy with their feedback, but that they know that they are people still needing of improvement. And so I thought that was very interesting. She talked to a lot of coaches where they talked about how much discussion of what you need, what you want the behavior to be, is beneficial to understanding what you need to modify. So instead of saying, you left the dirty dishes in the sink. I hate it when you do that. It sucks. That's a negative feedback in a way. And it doesn't really help because it makes the person feel defensive and it accuses the person it's judgmental. One of the psychologists she talks to defines criticism as a negative assumption about the other person's motives. Like, oh, you didn't do the dishes, so now you are a horrible person. But you can't just be positive, like, oh, well, you did take out the trash and, you do clean the living room, but you don't do the dishes. The person will see that I do this, and they won't necessarily change the behavior of not doing the dishes. So the coach was saying was, if you make a discussion about, well, the dishes are in the sink and I don't really like that, is there anything you could do to fix that, and talk about them and why the dishes are important? Because, well, the food sticks to the pan if you don't get it right away. There's a lesson involved, and people are a lot more willing to accept your lesson when you have a discussion with them that's not accusing them or judgmental in any way. And it also allows them to plead their case, which helps reinforce the behavior. um, I think this article was very important to the lesson that we will be finishing up at the end of this week with our test. But because we were talking a lot about Skinner and his experiments with rats, and how the negative punishment didn't lead to a longer longevity to the behavior modification in the rats. They kept, as soon as the punishment stopped, or in this case the punishment would be the negative feedback stopped, that's when the behavior continued again. Excuse me. And so in this instance, the positive reinforcement, or the non-punisher, would be the positive feedback or the discussion, where it instills that there's a good consequence to doing successful things, because we learn more through our successes than through our failures. And so coming at somebody with you did this is in a sense a failure, and you're not going to get the results you need. For further research of this topic, I would actually probably reread with a new mind the chapter that we just finished up in preparation for our test. So because of the Skinner experiment and just the fact of the new outlook that like not pain doesn't necessarily have to be a punishment. It can be just anything that causes the person to feel inferior or judged in any way, where you're not going to get a good solid behavior modification out of them like you would with a positive positivity, balance, and discussion. But other than the textbook, I would go to the databases to look up any case studies that they did with people with these particular forms of modification, and see what the numbers have to say, because this article was intended for the general public and not so much a scholarly article for aspiring psychologists. The third thing, what I would expect to find with this topic is I would expect to find that the more positive the reinforcement or the consequence via discussion or whatnot would affect the outcome of like the longevity of the behavior. So you might get your roommate to do the dishes when you yelled at them, but you won't create a habit of when you clean your dishes, you put it in the sink. So thank you so much for listening.